Woman, hear me carefully. There are moments in history where heaven itself leans close to the earth, searching for who is awake, who is prepared, and who can be trusted with the shift. We are living in such a moment. God is whispering and warning, this is not the hour to sleep. This is not the time to be distracted by broken emotions, shallow pursuits, or temporary attachments. The shift has already begun, and it is moving in silence. Brahman, if you do not stay awake, you will watch it pass you by. You see, wealth is never about money. Wealth is about trust. God does not release influence into the hands of those still chained to the opinions of others, still bound by relationships that drain them, still enslaved to the fear of being left behind. A woman who needs validation is not yet ready for elevation. Because until you detach from what you think you cannot live without, you cannot be trusted with what God is about to release. The billionaire shift is not a marketplace trend. It is a divine redistribution. Resources, platforms, and influence are leaving the hands of the careless and are being positioned in the hands of the faithful. And hear me. Faithfulness is not just prayer. It is discipline. It is detachment. It is the ability to walk away from what does not serve your assignment. The one who cannot let go of what is temporary will never touch what is eternal. Your strength as a woman is not measured by what you can hold on to, but by what you can walk away from. When your emotions no longer control you, when rejection no longer defines you, when betrayal no longer destroys you, when applause no longer intoxicates you, that is when heaven looks at you and says, now she is ready. Because the woman who cannot be controlled emotionally cannot be stopped spiritually. Stay awake. The signs of the shift are everywhere. Doors opening in places you thought were closed. Resources flowing to those who are prepared. Opportunities bypassing the talented but landing on the disciplined. If you stay attached to what is comfortable, you will sleep through what is supernatural. Detach, because detachment is not loss. Detachment is strength. Detachment is clarity. Detachment is freedom. A woman who can say, if I lose this, I still have him. If I am left alone, I still have purpose. If they walk away, I still rise. That woman becomes dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. She becomes unstoppable. This shift is not about who has the loudest voice, the most connections, or the greatest following. It is about who has the discipline to stay awake when others are asleep. The billionaire shift belongs to women who see wealth not as a possession, but as a tool. Not as luxury, but as responsibility. Not as power, but as stewardship. True wealth is not measured by the abundance of possessions, but by the freedom of the soul. When a woman ties her identity to what she owns, who she is connected to, or what she fears to lose, she becomes a prisoner to those very things. God cannot pour new oil into hands that are still gripping the old jar. The principle is simple. Whatever you cannot release has become your master. And anything that controls you has already reduced your strength. A woman who cannot let go will always be held back. But a woman who learns to detach, who learns to bless and release, becomes a vessel God can trust with treasures beyond measure. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means security in your identity. It means you are no longer defined by external possessions, but by internal conviction. This is why God sometimes allows things to be stripped from your life. Relationships, positions, opportunities, not to punish you, but to prepare you. He is teaching you that your worth is not in what you keep, but in who you are becoming. And once you prove that you can live without it, heaven grants you the power to live above it. The shift God is releasing is not for those clinging to temporary comfort. It is for women who have mastered the art of release. The woman who can walk away from what no longer serves her assignment is the woman who will inherit divine abundance. This is why the first test of wealth is not what you can receive, but what you can release. True wealth begins in detachment. Because the woman who owns nothing in her heart is the one God can trust with everything in her hand. True wealth is never about accumulation. It is about freedom. The most dangerous illusion is believing that what you have defines who you are. A woman can be surrounded by luxury, influence, and applause, yet still live in poverty of spirit if her heart is chained to things she cannot release. When fear of loss governs your decisions, you are not in control. What you fear losing is in control of you. God never intended for his daughters to live imprisoned by possessions, people, or positions. He designed you to rule over things, not to be ruled by them. The secret to true prosperity is the ability to let go. It is the strength to say, if this leaves, I still stand. If this breaks, I still rise. If they walk away, I still continue. That is wealth. Because wealth is not security in things, it is security in God. When your heart is free from attachment, you become untouchable. You are no longer moved by what others cling to, and heaven sees you as a trustworthy steward. God can only place great resources into the hands of those who will not bow to them. This is why so many miss their divine inheritance. They want abundance, but they are still emotionally attached to what is temporary. They pray for promotion, but their heart is still bound by validation, approval, and fear of rejection. Detachment is the refining fire. Until you can release what you think you need, you cannot receive what God knows you deserve. True wealth begins when your soul is free, when you realize nothing owns you. That is when God says, now I can trust her, because her heart is not in things, her heart is in me. Emotional mastery is one of the greatest signs of inner authority. A woman who cannot govern her emotions will always be governed by the people and circumstances around her. When anger controls you, when rejection defines you, when betrayal breaks you, and when applause intoxicates you, you become a puppet in the hands of others. But the moment you learn to rule your inner world, you step into a realm where nothing external can dictate your destiny. This is the difference between those who are easily shaken and those who stand unmovable. One reacts, the other responds with wisdom. God cannot elevate a woman who is still a prisoner of her emotions, because influence requires stability. To handle great responsibility, you must be unshaken by the storms of criticism and unmoved by the flattery of praise. True authority comes when you can hear people talk about you, betray you, or celebrate you, yet remain the same person. That is when you have become stronger than manipulation. Emotional mastery is what protects destiny from sabotage. The shift God is orchestrating will expose women who cannot control themselves. Opportunities will be lost by those who react in haste, while doors will open for those who walk in restraint. The woman who rules her spirit is more powerful than the woman who conquers nations. Because to conquer nations without conquering yourself is still defeat. Wealth, influence, and authority flow to the one who is stable in spirit, unbothered by chaos, and clear in identity. When your emotions no longer own you, you rise above control. You cannot be bribed by applause or broken by rejection. That is the posture heaven is searching for. The woman who has mastered herself so that she can be entrusted with more. Purpose is the foundation of all true possession. A woman who does not know her purpose will misuse everything that comes into her hands, because without vision, provision has no direction. Many chase after wealth, relationships, and opportunities, yet fail to realize that what you pursue outside of purpose will never satisfy. Purpose determines what you can be trusted with. God does not release resources into the hands of the distracted. He releases them into the hands of those aligned with his assignment. When your life is anchored in purpose, everything you need begins to find you. Wealth flows where purpose is established. Influence follows the one who knows why she exists. When you are clear about what God created you for, you no longer beg for attention or fight for position. You understand that resources are not about status, they are about stewardship. If you are called to build, heaven will release the materials. If you are called to lead, heaven will send the people. If you are called to create, heaven will open the door. But if you seek possession without purpose, what you hold will eventually hold you. This is why so many lose what they gain quickly, because they receive things without clarity of why they had them. But when you live with purpose, you don't just receive, you sustain. God entrusts you with influence because he knows you will use it to fulfill assignment, not to feed ego. The billionaire shift that is unfolding is not designed for those who are chasing luxury, but for those who are prepared to manage resources with vision and responsibility. Purpose is the key that attracts provision, and without it, no possession will ever carry meaning. Every divine shift comes suddenly, without warning to those who are asleep. God does not announce his movements with loud signs to the distracted. He moves quietly, and only those who are spiritually alert recognize the season. A woman who lives awake in spirit is never caught off guard. She discerns the times, she senses the winds of change, and she positions herself for what is about to be released. But the one who is distracted by emotional entanglements, constant comparison, or worldly noise will miss the moment because her eyes are fixed on what is temporary instead of what is eternal. Seasons of transition are always hidden in the ordinary. What looks like a small opportunity could be the doorway to generational blessing. What feels like an interruption could be the opening to destiny. Only those who are watchful will see beyond the surface. This is why Jesus told his disciples to stay awake, because the test of every shift is not in its coming, but in your readiness when it arrives. When God moves, he rarely repeats himself in the same way. Yesterday's strategies may not fit tomorrow's assignments. Staying awake means being flexible in spirit, sensitive enough to hear new instructions, and humble enough to let go of what worked before in order to embrace what is required now. The billionaire shift is not for those who are heavy with sleep, tied to old patterns, or numbed by comfort. It is for the vigilant, the focused, the discerning woman who refuses to waste her season. Watchfulness is not passive, it is active alignment. It is keeping your spirit sharp, your mind disciplined, and your emotions submitted, so when the shift happens, you are not confused, you are ready to step into it. Confidence in identity is one of the greatest shields of destiny. A woman who knows who she is in God cannot be shaken by the shifting opinions of people or the instability of circumstances. She is not defined by her relationship status, her possessions, or the recognition of men. She is defined by the unchanging word of God spoken over her life. That confidence becomes her anchor, and it preserves her from being tossed back and forth by every storm. The enemy's greatest weapon is confusion of identity, because if he can make you doubt who you are, he can make you forfeit what already belongs to you. A woman who is unsure of her value will always seek validation outside of herself. She will compromise her purpose to be accepted. She will lower her standards to feel loved, and she will trade her destiny for temporary comfort. But the woman who stands secure in her God-given identity cannot be bought, manipulated, or distracted. Her confidence intimidates insecurity, and her stability silences lies. That kind of woman is dangerous to the enemy because she cannot be lured away from her assignment. The shift God is orchestrating requires this level of confidence. Wealth and influence will destroy those who do not know who they are, but they will multiply in the hands of those who are secure in purpose. When you know your identity, you handle resources with humility, not pride. You lead with clarity, not confusion. You walk in authority, not arrogance. Confidence in identity protects destiny because it keeps you aligned with heaven's vision for your life. And when heaven sees that you will not allow external labels to redefine you, it entrusts you with greater responsibility, knowing you will not misuse what you have been given. Detachment is not only freedom, it is the doorway to discernment. When your heart is bound by the need for approval, by the desire to be accepted, or by the fear of losing people, your vision becomes clouded. You cannot hear God clearly when you are consumed by the voices of others. You cannot recognize divine direction when your emotions are tied to human opinion. But the moment you release those attachments, your spirit sharpens and your discernment increases. Detachment removes the noise so you can finally hear the whisper of God without interference. A woman who is free from emotional bondage can see opportunities others overlook. While many are blinded by flattery or crushed by rejection, she remains steady, discerning the difference between doors that are distractions and doors that are divine. Her clarity comes from her detachment. She no longer measures her worth by who stays or who leaves, by who praises or who criticizes. Instead, she measures her worth by alignment with her assignment. This posture makes her dangerous to deception because flattery cannot trap her and betrayal cannot destroy her. So the reason many miss the move of God is not because he is silent, but because they are too entangled to hear. When your soul is attached to outcomes, people, or positions, you cannot discern the shift when it comes. But when you let go, your eyes open. You begin to sense timing. You recognize divine appointments, and you detect counterfeit opportunities before they trap you. Detachment is not just about emotional strength, it is about spiritual sight. The freer you are from human control, the clearer you become in recognizing heaven's signals. Discernment flows to the heart that is unchained, and clarity belongs to the woman who refuses to be bound. The billionaire shift is not a movement of pride, luxury, or self-exaltation. It is a movement of stewardship. God is not releasing resources into the earth simply to make individuals comfortable. He is positioning women who will use wealth as a weapon to restore, to build, and to advance his purposes in families, communities, and nations. The true test of whether you are ready for this shift is not in how much you desire to have, but in how much you are prepared to manage with wisdom and humility. Wealth is never the goal, it is the tool. Influence is never the destination, it is the assignment. A woman who sees wealth only as a symbol of status is not yet qualified for divine release. Because wealth without vision becomes vanity, and influence without responsibility becomes corruption. God is searching for women whose hearts are purified by purpose, who understand that resources are only entrusted to those who will multiply them for the kingdom. The billionaire shift is not about who drives the finest cars or lives in the largest houses, but about who can be trusted to feed the hungry, educate the children, elevate the broken, and rebuild the ruins of society. This is why detachment and identity are so important, because without them, wealth becomes a snare. But with them, wealth becomes a platform for transformation. A woman who knows her purpose and walks in emotional mastery will use influence to set captives free, not to enslave others to her image. Heaven is releasing resources into the hands of women who understand that stewardship is greater than status. They will not be distracted by the glitter of wealth, but will be focused on the responsibility it carries. This is the shift, an awakening of purpose-driven stewardship on a global scale. Woman, the hour is urgent. and heaven is watching. The shift is no longer coming. It has already begun. This is not the season to be casual with your calling or careless with your emotions. This is the season to rise in discipline, in clarity, and in purpose. The world does not need another distracted woman. It needs a focused woman, a fearless woman, a woman who knows her identity and refuses to bow to the noise of culture. The billionaire shift is not about riches. It is about responsibility. It's about God trusting you with influence because he knows you will use it to rebuild, to restore, and to revive what has been broken. Stay awake, because the moment you are ready, the resources will find you. And when they do, may they find a woman unshaken, unbothered, and unstoppable.